Okay, Guillaume, are you ready?
I'm ready, Jan.
Excellent. So let's start by you introducing yourself.
So my name is Guillaume Brandes, and I'm Executive Director of the EDCF, which is the European Digital Cinema Forum.
And I'm Jan, and I'm the International Director of the ICTA, that's the International Cinema Technology Association. And Guillaume and I decided that we're going to launch a video podcast on cinema technology and innovation in cinema exhibition. So Guillaume, what's the first topic that we're diving into today?
So we're going to be deep diving into the topic of cinema software, which is a really fascinating one. And Jan has found some really, really good speakers for that first one.
All right, thanks, Guillaume. So let's dive in.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome, everyone. And joining us now are three executives from the cinema industry: Stefan Salzinger, the CTO of Nordisk Film Cinemas out of Denmark, but also operating amazing cinemas across the Nordics. Ricardo Ancona, the head of IT from York Cinemas Group, also operating different but also amazing cinemas in Berlin, in Germany. And Patrick von Sajkowski, not operating cinemas, but in charge of marketing and digital communications for Cinema Next in London. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So what we want to do, guys, is we want to talk about all things cinema software. Before we start with Stefan and Ricardo, we wanted to have a chat with Patrick around a session on software trends that we ran in collaboration between the EDCF and the ICTA at the Cinema Days almost 12 months ago. So Guillaume, over to you for that.
So for those of you who weren't there, basically this event was organized by UNIC, the trade association of European cinema operators. And we had a dedicated session for the technology part of the program around cinema software, which was actually a first at that event. So that's actually my first question to you, Patrick. Why was it a first? And how did we actually end up organizing that session in the first place?
That's an excellent question, Guillaume. Thank you to you and thank you to Jan. So cinema software tends to get overlooked, especially in discussions about technology around cinemas. We talk a lot about projectors, we talk about audio, we talk about even seating, but software is really at the heart of cinemas today. And it's not just in one place, but they've replaced so many things that were done by projectionists and humans before. So we find software in everywhere from obvious places like operational software, the theater management software, the point of sale software, inventory management, content delivery. There's really no aspect of cinema operation that doesn't involve cinema in some software in some capacity. And it's not just any one thing, because even within that, obviously, the different technologies have their own operational software, but we've got splits such as, do you have the software hosted locally or is it in the cloud? Is the software something that is developed specifically for cinemas, or are they using something more general for other industries as well? And then how do those softwares talk to each other? And I think focus become even more acute because of what we've seen recently with issues such as the AWS, the Amazon Web Service, going down and knocking several major online operations and physical operations out of business. We've seen the dangers with hacking and cybersecurity, especially in the UK with Marks and Spencers and recently Jaguar Land Rover. And obviously, constantly we have to worry about things such as GDPR and compliance, and also getting the feedback from the industry. So we don't just want to sit and think about this in abstract, but really went out and asked the cinema operators, what are their thoughts? And they were saying things such as more competition needed between the different suppliers for more innovation. Cinemas are very keen on owning their data. They want to have open standards so that not only can different software solutions talk to each other, but that also bespoke solutions can talk to industry-wide solutions. They point out the fact that the complexity is such that updating firmware can be a full-time job now, but it's so mission critical that sometimes you need support staff on site, which is what keeps my colleagues at Cinema Next very busy other times. And then there's a worry that with this level of complexity, it takes away knowledge, it takes away power and skills from the local cinema staff who no longer feel empowered. So we need issues such as training and documentation.
One, two, three, four.
Coming to you guys, Stefan and Ricardo, we're super grateful that you're with us. And before maybe, asking you about your general view of what Patrick just summarized in very quickly, I just wanted to ask you to maybe tell us about your respective pathways into cinema, because we also want to know and learn about you. So, Stefan, what brought you to Nordisk?
Yeah, so to make a fairly long story short, so it all started actually when I was reading as an Erasmus student in Glasgow, reading aerospace actually.
Okay.
And I met a Danish girl, which was now is my wife, moved into management consulting in London and then Copenhagen. That's how I moved to Denmark. Egmont was one of my first clients as a consultant, and Egmont is a big media entertainment group in the Scandinavia owning Nordisk Film.
Right.
So I started working for them as a consultant, and then I joined the group in 2004 to work on a VOD project, which was launched actually in 2005, quite early, probably too early. And then one thing leading to another, I had different roles in the organization. And in 2016, I joined the cinema organization 100% after the cinema organization started the big Nordic expansion with Norway and a bit of Sweden. And that's how it happened.
That's how it happened. And now now you remain in cinema, as so many people who
That's
joined
the plan.
the industry. And
Yes.
hey, what did you find most surprising when you moved into exhibition in terms of its operations, but also maybe its technological setup?
One thing, and I've heard that from many other people before, that is always surprising is from the outside, it looks simple. And everyone would say, but how complicated can it be? You're just selling tickets, showing a movie. Come on, it cannot be that complicated. And then when you start digging into the complexity of the business, the film rent, the deals, all the pricing models, the loyalty schemes, and the programmation, and then you're operating 363 days out of 365 days a year. You're always on, always running. It's a fairly complex and big operation, actually, especially if you're a big chain. And that's I think that's surprising for most people when you come from the outside and get exposed to the inside of the cinema business.
Excellent. Okay. And Ricardo, how about you? How did you land with York in Berlin?
I've been for York now for a bit under 2 years only. But my path in cinema starts way earlier. When I was around 18, 19, my dream was to open a DVD rental shop. And already back then it was a terrible business idea, but I still managed to think about how to do it and to pull through. And the combination to make it sustainable was to have a small cinema screen attached to it. The cinema has been closed now for 7 years. And literally just yesterday, I received an email from someone asking if they could rent the screen for an event. And I was like, sorry, but it's been closed for almost 10 years. I don't know what I can tell you. So that was in Mexico, where I'm from. And I grew up. Then similar path maybe to Stefan. I have industrial engineering background, and that's what I studied. And that's how I arrived originally to Germany to work in the industrial engineering and logistics field. And I was always a big fan of York, the York cinema chain. I had my York Unlimited membership, but I was going to watch movies all the time. I haven't checked where I'm ranked in the frequency of visits, but I was quite high in usage there of our unlimited membership. And through the projects that I was doing on the industrial engineering side, slowly moved more and more towards data and tech. And then the opportunity came through York to combine both of all these different paths of having both the cinema background and the tech and data point. And what a better place to do than in a cinema group and brand that I felt a strong connection with.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Excellent. Okay. And maybe a question to both of you now. Patrick, quickly summarized what we tried to do in Brussels last year. You saw the slides before. I know it's very broad, but what are your kind of key thoughts on the biggest challenges, but also the opportunities when it comes to IT and software in cinemas? And maybe we start with Stefan and then over to Ricardo.
Yeah, so Patrick said a lot of good things already, pretty much everything. I think one of the key challenges I wanted to highlight today is really what's been mentioned as one of the first points from Patrick, the lack of competition on the market, especially if you look at the ticketing software market or even the market for media distribution that media agencies use for showing advertising at the cinemas. There's also a very not so many choices there. And before going a little bit more into that, trying to understand why are we there. And the cinema industry is also quite special. We talked about it just before. It's a niche market, meaning that it's small and specialized, but not only being small and specialized, the specialty is also, it's complex. You have to support a lot of quite complex business models. And the needs you need to support to operate a whole cinema operations is quite broad. So you end up, as a software provider, I guess, having to support quite complex development, leading to high costs. And the rewards are fairly limited since the industry only has a size that it's got. So it makes it difficult to enter that game and going for big rewards. So I think that's probably something you need to accept. It's the way it is. That's the way the industry is, and you have to work with that. But the consequence really is that there is a lack of competition. You have some very large organizations doing in-house development, still like AMC in the US and UGC in France. Then you have, Vista covering a good chunk of the big chains and the medium chains. Then you have a soft spot in the medium to not so large chains where you have a number of players who can compete, but it's not so many players. It's a handful of players, and some of them are a bit legacy. And then you have the local players, mainly operating locally in their own territories for standalone cinemas. Some of them have tried to move beyond these borders, trying to address the needs of some cinema chains, but it's difficult to go from supporting standalone cinemas to supporting chains, and not so many players have managed to do that. So that's really a key challenge.
Excellent. Okay, and maybe a question to both of you now. Patrick, quickly summarized what we tried to do in Brussels last year. You saw the slides before. I know it's very broad, but what are your kind of key thoughts on the biggest challenges, but also the opportunities when it comes to IT and software in cinemas? And maybe we start with Stefan and then over to Ricardo.
Yeah, so Patrick said a lot of good things already, pretty much everything. I think one of the key challenges I wanted to highlight today is really what's been mentioned as one of the first points from Patrick, the lack of competition on the market, especially if you look at the ticketing software market or even the market for media distribution that media agencies use for showing advertising at the cinemas. There's also a very not so many choices there. And before going a little bit more into that, trying to understand why are we there. And the cinema industry is also quite special. We talked about it just before. It's a niche market, meaning that it's small and specialized, but not only being small and specialized, the specialty is also, it's complex. You have to support a lot of quite complex business models. And the needs you need to support to operate a whole cinema operations is quite broad. So you end up, as a software provider, I guess, having to support quite complex development. Another challenge I see is that, and we'll get back to that, I think, a bit later again, it's I see some software suppliers trying to go after too many balls, trying to cover too many aspects of the operations instead of sticking to the core. And the core can be different from operator to operator, from software vendor to software vendor. But still, there is some kind of a core: managing your prices, managing your inventory, managing your guests, the POS sales, supporting APIs integration for digital sales, and so on and so forth. But if you start going into too many aspects around that core, with the limited sizes that these software providers are, none of them are very big. Even Vista, the biggest player, it's not that big if you compare to other software players in other industries. Then it starts getting difficult to maintain good roadmaps on all aspects of the software you're trying to cover. So I think that's also a challenge, trying to do too many things with too little resources. And then another challenge, maybe that's which is more an internal thing, is I think we also have to accept now in the industry, for most chains, and I think most chains are getting there, that IT has to be managed and handled very professionally, with real professional IT organization like you would have in other industries, because you cannot expect these software providers to come and do everything for you. You need to manage the solutions, you need to manage your own data, your own integrations, you need to manage them as vendors as well. So you cannot do that the way you could do it maybe 20 years ago, 10 years ago. You need to build organization with people who know about application management, data management, do IT operations and so on, and not having a team maybe of 2 or 3 people doing everything at the same time, depending on your size, obviously. Yeah.
Are you seeing many different demands or needs across the 3 main markets of Nordisk for what is needed?
To be completely honest, no, I think the needs are pretty similar. But I guess it's also because we decided to harmonize and be very tough of standardizing our solutions across territories, because we operate IT and technology at a Nordic level. We don't want to spread our efforts. So we try to make all the solutions and all the architectures completely identical across Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. The only difference is we have to deal with dictated by the market. It's about reporting, about gift cards and agreements with external players to support some schemes and so on. But everything that can be decided and managed internally, we try to do it completely harmonized and standardized to lower the complexity, lower the costs, and all that. So I think that's something where I would feel that most cinema chains are in pretty good control of that aspect. I would say across Europe. The big differences, the big issues are compliance. You have different compliance rules, especially in Eastern Europe and Southern Europe. Some places it can be very difficult. We have that a little bit in Sweden, a little bit more in Norway, not so much in Denmark. And then integration for reporting numbers.
Whenever I talk to,
it's your own choice.
Whenever I talk to an operator from any country, they always feel like that their country is the one with the largest degree of complexity of compliance.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But I think maybe to follow up on your point of the challenges, one that I see from my side, maybe it's because York is more on the art house cinema direction, not really that technology connected, is that challenge of a bit of pushback towards standardization. No? I come from an industrial engineering background, and that's what actually everyone wants, no? How can we make better standards of everything and pushing efficiency? Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's make it easy. And cinema attracts a lot of very creative people that push for very individual. So of course, in our cinema, we try to show the own personality of the venues in itself, and at the same time, is this tricky balance of having like, yes, we want to showcase this, what make this specific venue unique, but also we want to be able to maintain everything that we're doing, and that means yes, like the everything hardware, software that we're setting up needs to follow some exact specifications. And that goes a bit, yes, it's part of tech, but it's more of in a larger scale of what is then connected to that.
So are you saying that the culture of the cinema community also is reflected in its demands for software diversification somehow?
I think of everything, no? We all want to have a very individualized tool, and that can apply. But I think also for me, not every tool needs to be the one developed for the cinema industry. I think I'm fine with using a separate tool that was not exactly the one made for this specific feature, for these specific use cases, because then I think we run up with something similar to what Stefan was mentioning, that this company is maintaining this, then it's just impossible. You cannot then cover everything because it just becomes so diverse and it doesn't make enough money for them. So then everyone ends up unhappy, while we could just turn a few degrees to the side and see all the tools that are across industries that could cover all these special use cases. And then the things that are only cinema specific can remain as cinema specific.
No, but I agree. There are some aspects of the operation and the business where there is a lot of creativity and flexibility that the systems need to support. Like agreements on film rent, for example. There's no limit to the models you can find from distributor to distributor or country to country. And that makes just that aspect of the operations quite complex, and the demands on software development quite complex as well, because you need to really support a lot of variables for these models. And that's just one of the aspects.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Just to kind of like follow up to the great list that Stefan did of like challenges and opportunities he's currently facing. I was wondering, Ricardo, do you feel like you managing a smaller network? So Stefan, I think you are at close to 50 sites across 3 different markets. Ricardo, you have around 14 smaller cinemas in Berlin. But do you feel that this means that you are facing a very different reality from an IT and software perspective than Stefan, or not so much?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I mean, I've talked to Stefan before a couple of times. I think we have a smaller team, no, that leads to more generalist roles, and which means then by definition a bit less specialized. And that means that yes, we need to figure out more things as it goes, maybe budget-wise also different. But I think together with that, there might be some things that lead to faster decision making. Maybe if then you have just there will be a team managing something. In these cases, is one person or half of a person, because that person is also doing some other role together with it. So yeah, testing and iteration is faster, maybe I would imagine. But then the level of specialization, that would make it. I think in some projects we would struggle more than what the resources that probably none of us have, but also in some we can move a bit faster.
1, 2, 3, 4.
One topic I see that definitely applies to all cinemas, whatever the size and location, is the one of cybersecurity. We actually we mentioned the unique event from last year, well, this year in November, cybersecurity will be a big part of the program because it's really been flagged by cinema associations, cinema chains, independent cinemas across Europe and globally. So I was wondering, how are you actually addressing these concerns at the moment? Is this something that is actually top of mind for you? Maybe starting with Stefan.
Yeah, very much. I think it's on top of mind for all IT professionals, to be honest. Huh? So, yeah, it's a concern. It's a growing concern, and it will never end. You'll never get to a point where you can put a tick mark in a box and say job done, security. Okay, we go on vacation. It's very complex, and also it's more and more something that is not only relevant for IT teams, but also for all the staff, all the employees. Social engineering issues are really one of the bigger threats. That's really one of the things that is concerning me the most. So what do we do? First of all, we try to piggyback on some of the services from the group, from Egmont Group. That's where we can use their muscle. So we use some tools that they have made this available for the whole group. Then we have a program with some white hat hackers from Yes We Hack to test the robustness of our digital solutions, which is very good. Then we spend a lot of time on communication, staff training, online courses for our staff that they have to take every year. About making them at least aware of cybersecurity issues. We're going to do some more dedicated training for the POS staff, the frontline staff, to explain them how to address some specific situation at the cinemas. If someone comes in and say, "Hey, I'm the plumber, I'm going to fix something. Can you just show me the way to the technical room," or whatever? How do you handle such a situation? Cybersecurity can come in very, very different forms. And then other things we try to do, actually going back to IT and software, is trying really to make our operations and our architectures are simple, harmonized, and standardized as possible, so we don't have to maintain 10,000 of very special applications and solutions around many locations. That's really something that is helping preventing and minimizing the risks. Then we have put in place some very strict policies in terms of traffic between the different applications, from the outside, from the inside, and by default we block everything and only open what is allowed. And last point I wanted to highlight is that it's probably going to happen one day, whether you are the target or you are a collateral victim, like it happened for our good friends from Pathé and Odeon in Scandinavia and Switzerland. Sometimes the hosting provider or someone else get targeted and you are the collateral damager. So what we've put in place is what we call a crisis reaction handbook, which is not a very, very complex handbook, but just some very basic reaction patterns. What do you do if you get hit by a cyber attack? How do you mobilize? How do you communicate? How do you start screening the attack and the risk, and how to recover? And we don't spend so much time detailing the recovery phase because we trust that we have the right skills and people to do that. So we're really trying to make sure that we don't start by having a complete chaos in the organization if it happens, that we know exactly how we handle the situation, having separate communication channels, separate war rooms, all that kind of logistics in place. And we have a different checklist we can follow, and hopefully we'll never have to use it. But I'd rather have the checklist ready in case if it happens. Huh? But
How's the process
big concern. It's never going to go away.
How was the process of setting that up, Stefan? Did you have in a particular workshop, or it's been something that you've been iterating?
The handbook?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we started actually with an external IT security agency to first to get mobilized a little bit on that, learn from other attacks that had impacted some Danish companies. And then at the end of it, we decide, okay, what do we do now? And we came up with that idea to do a simple handbook that anyone actually in the organization, and it's online in a separate tool that is not related to our infrastructure. Anyone in the organization should be able to take the lead with that handbook if the shit hits the fan, if we can say it like that. Because you have to also be aware that sometimes these attacks and these situations occur at the bad moment when people are on holidays, it's a weekend. I mean, they do it in a smart way. So you need to be able to mobilize someone who's maybe not expected to take that role and that job, but still you have something you can drive the effort from. And yes, so we had different iterations, and every time we have new employees joining the IT organization, we ask them to read the handbook, make sure they understand it. And once a year, we do a complete review, make sure that all the contact details, phone numbers, names, and all that are completely correct. So it's very pragmatic, very operational, but hopefully it will work. Hopefully it will never have to work.
Yeah.
And considering all the, I mean, we discussed this earlier, all the hardware and software on which our industry relies and the highly complex infrastructure on which we sit, how do you actually see that ways to facilitate kind of like an industry-wide understanding of what those security standards should be between manufacturers, software providers, cinema operators, distributors, and so on? Because you mentioned like the risk from a cinema operator's point of view, but there's also the huge risk related to content being stolen or not reaching cinemas.
That's a very good one. I mean, the good thing is that so far it's always been it's been safe, and I think the whole approach, and I think that's where actually the projection industry has been very good together with the studios to build end-to-end mechanism for encrypting the content, delivering the keys, managing the keys at a very, very low level of detail, actually. It goes down to the projection, to the projector and the screen for a particular movie for a given period of time, all that. And I think that's very good because that's really helping minimizing the risk. It's very, very, it's a very strict policy, but it works. And it's necessary, and it's something that the whole industry put together, and so that's a very good example of standardization and work across vendors and partners. When it comes to other type of software, I think it's more complex and more complicated because it depends on how you operate, how you do your hosting. How you integrate, that's where you need to take a very active role and be on top of your architecture and your traffic and your prevention tools.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Are there any specific projects that you're working on where AI is helping, in a big way?
Exactly. I think for us, we see it, I mean, we talked about the size of the team and the willingness to try new tools. And that is where we see AI as an opportunity to be, I mean, it's a tool, it's not magic. We want to use it to improve existing workflows, to try to optimize processes that already exist, and to get buy-in from the rest of the team to show already like practically what is working. And yeah, so we're starting with slowly increasing groups of people who then get onboarded into what exactly we want to do, why we're doing this, the tools that we're selecting to do. And yeah, so tomorrow we're having then the next class. So the next session of people that are starting their training program. No? So the first round went successfully. We're very happy with it. I think it's also an area that is changing so fast. No? I think it's also, if anyone is following what then is possible with tools connecting to AI, it's something that is really changing by the day. So yeah, I think it's part of the responsibility of the organization because everyone is nowadays using at least LLM chat tools. No, this is something that everyone is doing. And I mean, it's easy then to connect to the cybersecurity, social engineering part of this. Now, if your team is going to be using that, you need to, in an approachable, easy to grasp and to remember way, to show like, what can you do with it? How can you interpret the results that are coming out of it? With what level of certainty can it be done? And seeing it in a way that it's not about fear, it's about what exactly you can do with it. And yeah, so we're being optimistic about it, but also cautious in the way that we implement it. I think it's also in the end is this balance. Now we are operating cinemas, but cinema in itself we're talking about movies, and then that's often then gets mixed with the generative AI part of this, of like making photos and videos, which can again make people resistant to trying out the tools, because what they think of when they hear AI is these tools that are causing in their minds the destruction of the movies that they like. And part of this training is like, no, like we're using this to make our lives easier and the operational part of cinemas.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I want to jump back into the topic around the complexity that Stefan mentioned earlier. You know, how we have those hyper local software provider. Just to give very practical example, in Denmark, you've got 2 local providers that build software for Danish cinemas and that only operate in Denmark. On top of which you have 2 international players that are used by the 2 leading chains. And in Germany, it's 4 providers, 1 international, 3 born in Germany, made for the German market. The Danish market has a very unique way of reporting box office data that is different from anyone else in Europe, they would like to say. In Germany, they have a very unique way of invoicing each other between exhibitors and distributors. So everybody has their own complexity, let's call it that way. So, I mean, there are obviously some advantages to this. It means that I would imagine that cinema operators are in a position of power, because they can also influence how some of these software are developed or not. You will tell me, Stefan. But there are also a lot of way where I'm seeing missed opportunities in terms of how these softwares can evolve. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts, Stefan, first on all of this, and kind of then segue also on how you are maybe already now using software that are actually not made for cinema initially, but that do a better job at from compared to what you have from the sector at the moment.
Yeah. So there were a few questions. I think, how much power do we have? It depends. And it's just market dynamics, so there's nothing, it's just the way it is. I would expect, though, and hope that the software providers are also acting as some kind of gatekeepers for their own software to preserve the integrity of their data model, and just not say yes to everything, even if we offer to pay for any kind of development. That's one of the expectation I have to a software provider, is that they are good at saying no once in a while, because that will just make the software more difficult to update, upgrade, and maintain in the future. And then when it comes to local integrations, local needs, well, there's no discussion. You need to do it, you need to support it. It's just a question of getting it done. And that's where the needs of having open architectures and good and sound data models, all that is really important for these systems. Huh? And again, some are better than others, some are more modern than others, some are more flexible than others, and that's the way it is. Huh? But that's where, as an exhibitor, that's what we call non-negotiables from our side. You just have to comply and develop, and yes, we'll have to pay on some of these aspects, but that's the way it is. Huh? And going that to the last question about which vendors do you select and all that, that's a very interesting one. At Nordisk, we have an approach. There's no right and wrong. It's all down to having to deciding a strategy. Do you want to go for basically best of suite or best of breed? Best of suite, you buy everything from one provider. They deliver you the core ticketing, they deliver you the web, the app, the data hub, marketing automation, and all that. That's a choice. It gives some comfort in terms of integration. I would say it gives a lot of limitations in terms of being best at everything. Back to the discussion we had before. Best of breed is the way we've selected at Nordisk. So we want the best solution for all aspects of our operations. So a strong ticketing system for the core of the operation of ticketing. And then around that, we select point solutions. And that's where we go for off-the-shelf solutions if we find something, or custom if we don't find something good enough. So for web and app, for example, we went for custom solutions that we developed together with some agencies, with our own developers, outsourced. For marketing automation, that's where we selected another tool that is not dedicated to the cinema industry. It's a tool working with a lot of other e-commerce companies in Europe. It's called Engage. It was called Selligent before, so a few other cinema chains are using it. And I think that's a very interesting aspect, because that's exactly where you can get the benefits of other much bigger industries than ours, putting a lot of development efforts into products that are basically addressing the same needs as you have when it comes to marketing automation, when it's about sending emails, personalized emails, push notifications in an app, doing trigger email campaigns, all that. And if you have a good architecture where you really have good control of your data in your own data hub, that's also for me a very key aspect. You need to have your own data hub. Then you can build all the flows and all the workflows that you can dream of. You're not limited to some kind of industry logic. And that's where I think that the field expertise for marketing automation is more important maybe than the film expertise from the industry. And that's the logic we are trying to follow on these aspects. So for web, app, data hub, marketing automation, BI, reporting, those kind of aspects. So I think once in a while, I can understand that for some exhibitors, again, commercially, if you can strike a big deal, it can be very good to go for the full suite. Or if you're small and you don't have the capacity or the resources to do the integration and manage integrations yourself, it also gives some comfort to go for one vendor. I just think it has also some drawbacks. You have a strong lock-in if you take everything from one vendor, so you lose your independence in some way. You lose some control as well. You might be in a position where who's dictating the prices, and you might not get the best solution that you can get for your needs, because you just get what's available from the industry. And sometimes you'll get surprised that if you look at the prices, they're not necessarily higher when you take solutions from other industries than solutions dedicated to the cinema industry. So that's also actually interesting.
But to actually make this your, let's say, your best of breed strategy a reality, you need that transparency and openness you mentioned earlier. So having like a properly open infrastructure, good open APIs and so on. Is this something where you feel that today we are already? Open
API, I don't quite know what that means, to be honest. For me, it's just having a strong API when most of the features you need are supported by an API, and an API that is well documented, well supported, and so on. That for us was very important. And to be honest, we looked at different vendors. It was not all vendors who had that capability. And then they fell short because our need is really clear on that aspect. We need open architecture, strong APIs, so we can build the solutions we want on top of that. And access to data was also a very key requirement. So we extract all the data into our data hub, which also means that when we did the transition from system to system, we didn't lose any history at all in our data. We still have everything in the data hub. When you look at the dashboards, the reporting, we have full continuity of data since 2015.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I mean, related to what you just said, and so data ownership and the infrastructure on which our cinema operations lie at the moment, we know that there's also a very big central point that will help you decide which software to go to, is whether you go for something that is cloud-based, that is server-based, or that is hybrid with like one central hub and other sites being cloud-based. I'm actually gonna ask that question first to Ricardo. Is this how important is that aspect for you?
I think first of all, connecting to the point that, I mean, I've had a couple conversations with Stefan, and it feels like we're both finishing up each other's sentences. It's very nice to hear like someone who has like a very similar vision as we do. And it's very nice to hear someone who has also, I mean, at a larger scale than what we are operating. So it's also, we take a lot of notes of what this approach that Nordisk has. I think everything that then, to me, like a concrete position between the cloud versus server based, we're flexible depending on what is then needed. For us, we have a strong experience of managing on-premise solutions for our point of sales. So we don't see the push for that, but that is very depending on the team that we had. If in the York team, there was no one who had experience in maintaining this, then that'll be a different conversation, no? Because it's not an easy skill to have and to have the certainty. And I know that the people who are taking care of the servers at York, I have like full trust, not just on the setup, but also on the reaction time. Like we were talking also before, like if something happens, I know that they're gonna have also the skills to solve also the points that are not in the documentation. They're gonna be able to react as it should be. So that makes me feel comfortable for this, but this is not like a blanket statement that everyone should have on-premise and everyone should have cloud-based. I think that's very depends the setup that of the team that one has, the number of locations, what are the specific needs that there are. It's more of a I know that there are people who have a much more stronger points. Either everything is cloud or everything is on-premise, and I think we're more flexible depending on what is then the concrete team that we have.
You won't get a very heated debate between Ricardo and I, because it seems like we agree on a lot of aspects. So I fully agree on that. We don't have any dogma regarding cloud or on-prem. We are very pragmatic actually, and look at the concrete needs. So we have both. We have some AVS, we have some, our data hub is in Azure, we have some SaaS solutions from the cloud, and our ticketing is in the private cloud and with some on-prem servers. And that's the way it is today. It could be different in the future, but to be honest, I don't see any need to change that. It's working. It's also very cost competitive, to be honest, from an operational point of view. Just moving things to the cloud is more expensive than operating in a more traditional way. You have to really be cloud native to get the full effect of the cloud pricing. So for us, it's not we have a set of 10 core principles for technology. Cloud is not part of that. And it was not part of our selection process, actually, when we looked for a new solution. It's like Ricardo said, if you have a good team, dedicated, who understand the business and don't manage through SLAs and that, then you are pretty confident that your operations are going to work smoothly.
Maybe to add a bit of stories to it. Before joining York, I was working for almost 5 years in a data agency. We were working with data-related projects across different industries and everything. And to me, it was always, I mean, I was there to help implement the projects, whatever they needed. And I always found it was so insightful to hear that in not every company, but quite often, the the teams have very strong ideas and like, no, it's on-premise or nothing. And then they will be the first one that would send you like, there was an issue with the Google Cloud servers in Europe. And it was like 3 different companies would send me the link. See, Google Cloud network. And then the next day they would find a security breach on the on-premise solution that we're sending. And the other companies now will send me like, see, like on-premise doesn't work. Everything needs to be the cloud. And then the other server will be like AWS, something would happen. It's something that you need to then trust and develop your team and then be certain. It's not like one solution then is going to get you out of the potential challenges that are going to come.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I would have one more small provocative question, if I may, towards the end. So entertain me for a moment. So when I have too much time at my hands, I watch videos of Evan Shapiro, who's this media consultant coming out of New York, who comments a lot on the gap that is between, kind of traditional media, so broadcasting, radio, also cinema, to be honest. And then he compares it to social media, YouTube, and so on. And he did a long interview with 2 broadcasting CTOs at IBC recently, where he quizzed the CTO of, I think, Channel 4 and the former CTO, and maybe the former is telling here, of the Swedish public broadcaster. And he asked them what they would do away with in order to innovate. And the Swedish broadcasting CTO said all broadcasting standards, because he wanted to level up with the video, with this new ecosystem that everybody's spending so much time on. So I hope the question makes sense, but Stefan, you earlier talked about how important it is to have this secure, and pretty unique system of distributing and exploiting films in cinemas. We put many of the systems that our industry operates on in place 10, 15 years ago. And my question is, how enabling and important are those systems? And to a certain degree also, are there some legacy systems that you think we might need to do away with in order to move forward?
First of all, I think the one thing we've realized when the digitization came in 2010-11, people estimated that it would last, the projectors and all that would last for 10 years, and they would have to start replacing. Now we are 15 years down the road, and you still have some of these projectors running and running quite well. So I think most exhibitors are still replacing at a pace that is reasonable, because the costs are pretty high and there's no VPF anymore. And I think the technology in place there from the distribution side of things is still quite robust, to be honest, because it's simple. And it's operating also on some solutions that are a bit more proprietary than other type of solutions that are based on software operating system that are probably more exposed because they are more interesting for hackers and so on. So I think we have an architecture on the distribution side of things that is still quite robust and sustainable. So I'm not so concerned about that aspect, to be honest. If you have, of course, you need to have good lines, secured lines, and all that, but all the content is encrypted until it gets displayed. So that's a very good concept. Now, legacy on the IT side of things, that's always a pain. And it's always a risk, operational risk, because at some point you don't have people who know the solutions anymore. And it's also a security risk because is it still being patched, is it still being updated as it should? So I understand the standpoint from that person. I think the best you can do is to get rid of the legacy as soon as you can. And it's easy to say, very difficult to execute. But as soon as you get a window of opportunity, like you do a major project where you replace the software, you do a major upgrade, use that opportunity to get rid of the legacy while you do it. Because when you're in the normal operations, it's very hard to find the time and prioritize the time to kill the legacy. You have so many other things you want to do and need to do. But I think comparing again, we sometimes talk about our industry, other industries. I don't think our industry is that bad in terms of legacy systems. You know, in banking, in finance, they still work sometime on some mainframe systems for some operations, and that's real legacy. I mean, things that were done before you were born, and I'm not that young anymore. I mean, that's real legacy. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I would ask you both actually, if you had like, I don't know if it's a wish list or a single wish to some of your software partners that you would like to express now, starting with Ricardo maybe.
I think we touched a couple of those points already. We talked absolutely the focus on API and integration. It's a non-negotiable point for us. I think also the very particular York point, to have the support for multi-location but mid-size operators as us. We don't have one cinema, but we also don't have 100. And I think this is a very particular case. And I think this is, when we talk about culture, this is where innovation happens. No, in this double-digit size. Single digit, much more difficult to do something. When you're up to 100, you don't have that much incentive to do that. And we need support from our partners to be able to do that. And the last point, we also talked about it, the ownership of data. I think then this gives us the flexibility, and it comes from a two-way trust, of course. If I have then the data available, I'm going to be more likely to select a tool that has that. Yeah, I have more flexibility that I could potentially move to something else, but I'm not even going to select one that is not offering that. No, so it's both points are there. That's it.
Stefan?
Yeah, I kind of agree. So yeah, open architecture, strong APIs to support integrations. Don't go for locked ecosystems. Accept that there are other solutions elsewhere that are as good or better to integrate with the core of the ticketing. If we talk about ticketing, which is the core of the operations, and stick to the core. Actually, that's one of my main recommendation. Identify what your core is. I'm not here to tell anyone what it is, but it's up to each of them to do that. But please stick to that and don't try to address too many needs because I don't think that's a sound strategy. And we talked before for other aspects of the software, field expertise versus film expertise. When it comes to software vendors in our industry, dedicated to our industry, I think it's important that they invest in people as well who understand the industry, because it is more complex than it seems to be. And one thing that can be very frustrating for exhibitors who know the complexity and understand the complexity and embrace the complexity is to talk to sometimes some people, not all of them. There are some very good people as well out there, but sometimes you have to explain everything from scratch. Or you send some elements to development and you get something back, and it's like, okay, do you even know what we do as a cinema? So you need some people in these companies who actually really know the business. And there are a great bunch of people who do that, but some places it can be a bit better.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much, Stefan, Ricardo. That was super insightful. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Patrick, how are you feeling? Are you?
It's not cold anymore.
Much
That's it.
better,
Not cold
thank you.
anymore?
Definitely recovered.
Okay. Thanks
It's
to
been
you
a
as well,
fascinating
obviously.
listening to these presentations. So thank you to both of those. And let's keep the conversation going. We're no doubt going to talk about it at the Unix Cinema Days. And also a small plug at the EDCF conference in Warsaw next year, 10th and 11th of March. So thank you for arranging this, Jan.